Okay, so we are going to be kicking off. So we are taking a stab at this podcast thing again, Kat. And this is episode 3. We did these things prior to COVID. And so this is technically episode 3, but it's been about 2 years, 3 years since we did episode 2. So we got some work to do to catch up. But I want to welcome everybody to the Bomber podcast. We're excited to bring this back, and we feel like that the sport needs some conversation in a lot of ways, maybe, and hopefully we can give some perspective on a couple different angles that you don't necessarily always get to hear. So our guest, I don't know if everybody knows who you are, Kat Osterman, but you are. Let me run down this list here. Uh, Director of art. Like, you got your hands in a lot of stuff, right? Like, I don't know if like you thought when you retired that you were just gonna like ride off into the sunset and just chill and lay by the pool, all that good stuff. But I have these things down. You tell me if I'm missing anything. Director of the RBI Academy and the Kat Osterman Academy. You
Yes.
currently call games on television, ESPN, different avenues, different platforms. And the last week you call for Flow, different things. You are still an instructor, private instructor, technically, although you may not call yourself that. You do give lessons. You do get to hang out in the dugout with the coolest coach that I know. You're the pitching coach for the Texas Bombers Gold 18U team. You are the owner of a new business called the Card House. It's a poker room that's going to be opening in New Braunfels. We can talk about that a little bit. Um, you are a mom, so that's cool. Like, you got to add that to the list. What did I miss? What did I miss that you're involved with?
I think that was everything. I don't know. Did you get my director of pitching performance for us?
Oh yeah. You are the director of pitching performance
Yeah.
for Bombers Fast Pitch, which is really cool.
And then you
Uh,
can throw in, I do a little bit of real estate on the side sometimes. So
You
yeah,
did sell my daughter her house.
it helped
So
her find her her dream home. That
yeah,
was perfect.
yeah. No, she's doing good. She's got Rugrats running all over that place. So you did good on that too. So
Yeah.
um you don't have enough to do.
No, I think the one thing is, being an athlete, we're always busy, always training, always doing something. And so, people are like, I thought you retired. I'm like, I retired from playing. I didn't retire like, our parents do at a certain point from working. So I knew when I retired, I was going to have to, find ways still to, I mean, let's be real. I have to find ways to still earn money. I didn't make millions on millions, like
Like
my
you should
male
have. Like you
counterparts.
should have. Yes.
Yeah, like my male counterparts. So
Yeah.
obviously still have to help pay the bills, but every time I think I'm going to step away from the game, there's always something that ropes me back in. And for the first part was I had been involved with RBI for a long time as a board member. Being a college coach, I couldn't physically do a lot because of recruiting rules. And so the first part of that when I was retiring was like, hey, can we start an academy where we train girls who come from, the underserved parts of Austin. So we have 18 girls that we train all fall and winter, and have a couple tournaments for them, and just get them understanding softball at a different level and being able to compete. And hopefully, the end goal is if we can find a place for them to play in college and help. Some of them would be first time, college attendees in their family if we can make that happen. And so there's a lot of goals there, and we're slowly we've been in it for 3 years now, so we're slowly ticking those off. And then the second piece was, I was benefited working out in your facility and let you know that I was no longer college coaching. And coaching has always been a passion of mine. I told my parents in like fourth grade that I wanted to be a coach. So I knew I wanted to coach after graduating college, which is kind of to why
I'm
my
not very
major.
smart, Kat. I'm not very smart, but what I was really smart and realized she might want to still coach. Let me just ask. So the cool thing, like, all you can say is no, right? And you
Yeah,
didn't.
right.
You didn't say
No.
yes. You didn't say yes right away either. But I think I planted a seed, and then as that process happened, I got lucky. It's cool. It happened.
Yeah, well, you first there was the pitching development piece, and it was like, okay, what does that look like? And I think COVID hit, so we had to figure out what did that really look like. And then got the opportunity to get back in the dugout with you, and you know, I do. I love coaching. I love sharing pitching, but I love being able to make that relationship with the kids to see them grow both as athletes and people. And, you know, we're able to do that. In fact, I had a phone call from one of ours in that first summer last night, which was probably like a 35 minute phone call. And, you know, they all were excited when I have my kids. So it's, you know, it's another extended family. And, yeah, I keep saying I'm gonna get away from coaching, but I don't know that that's really going to be the reality. So
Yeah,
there
you
might
had
be
a
some
daughter.
weekends that I have to take off because travel ball is way extensive when it comes
Yeah.
to taking up my whole summer and fall. But at least until my kid can run around and kick a soccer ball or hit a volleyball or throw a softball, we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, like, well,
We're not.
let me jump in and talk about just a little bit about how you've been juggling that mom thing and coach thing. Um, you know how hard that is. I know how hard it is to travel around the country and live out of a suitcase for 6, 8 weeks at a time between the fall and the summer and everything else. And you did that literally, like you had the baby. When was JC born? March time frame?
March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the stud, the real rock star of the family was born in March, and which she's way cool. Like I think she likes me the best. I'm at least I'm convincing myself that she likes me the best.
He does
But
like her from Uncle Scott.
yeah, I love that kid. And so yeah, the fact that you had a daughter and you're stuck in softball, like that's a thing. Like I had 3 granddaughters. Like I thought I was like, okay, I'm good. Like Jade's done, she's done with college. And not that I wanted to get out of the sport, but I was like, okay, I'm like, whoa, I think somebody's playing a funny joke on me. Like I have 3 granddaughters. So, but how you juggled being a mom and traveling, I mean, what was that? April, May, June, like 4 months later. And but you had a really cool support system. Like, talk about what that was like a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, rewind back to I started commentating at the beginning of season. And so I commentated up to 36 hours before she was born. And then I got back in the booth 18 days later. And you know, the whole time, again, I'm a go, go, go. So there was never a question of like, I'm going to stop and I'm not going to sit at home, and I love her, but I'm not going to just sit at home and do nothing. And so, fortunate that obviously my parents moved up here right before COVID, about 45 minutes from us. And so the plan has always been either my mom or my husband, Joey, will be able to, you know, come with me wherever and take care of her. It was a little bit harder with commentating because she was still breastfeeding. So I was like literally in between games, jetting down to feed her and then get back in the booth within like a 20-minute time span. But when it came to traveling, you know, we just looked at it. What tournaments could my mom come? What tournaments did I need Joey to come? And there were times that neither one could come, and, you know, talk about our team being an extended family. You know, my kid knows no stranger because she gets passed around the stands from parent to parent. And I think that's the cool part is they all love her as much as I love their daughters. And it's fun to be able to, you know, fun and comforting both to know that, you know what, I can show up with her and just hand her off and I don't have to worry about her till the end of the game, because they take such good care of her. But yeah, mom came to Colorado and Joey came to California, and we made it work. You know, I didn't realize how much you have to pack for a little tiny infant to travel, but
Because they
you know,
spit
we
up on
made it work.
everything all day long. Everything's dirty at the end of the day.
It
Yeah.
is.
You know, it
And
was
so
really,
yeah.
you know, what's cool, Cat? It was like, I don't know how many times I'd be at third base, middle of an inning or something. And like, I just gave a signal, the pitch is about to, and I'd see one of the parents walking behind the fence over there with her walking back and forth. And you literally talk about like people use the word family a lot. Like they throw it around like it's like families are like, you know, when you're part of something that's real versus something that people put on the back of a shirt or say, and it's not real. Like you're like, they know the Bomber family or this or that, right? Like I totally get that that's such a simple word to misuse a bunch, but like it was really cool watching. Like through the course of the game, I could see 8 different. I could see Swanee's dad. What like JC loves some Swanee dad too, right? But Camry's dad, and then Camry's mom, and then Nutty's dad and Nutty's mom. Like it never ended. And so it was really cool to see that. And I'm thinking about how cool she doesn't know what she's going through. But what's that experience hopefully going to be like when she's 3 or 4 and she does start to know, like, I grew up at a ballpark and I had all these people. And then when I know like how Bracken is, like, she has favorite players because she spent that one
Mhm.
summer in the dugout with us. And that's going to be really cool to see that become a thing, right? Like where
Yeah.
she actually understands what's happening.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. And I think I'm waiting for even, yeah, like you said, 2 or 3 years. And, if we go out to ASU to watch Swan and Cambry play, like she at least kind of knows who they are. And then later on, there's a story, when she sees this picture of like, these are the people that took care of you before you even like understood anything in the world. But it's fun. And I do think like a lot of people throw the word family around, but
Yeah.
the way that our team comes together and, they just, the second I was having a baby, everyone was like, what do you need? Like, let us know.
It's really cool watching the girls nurture her, right? Like they don't have any experience doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah.
know how to hold her. I mean, like it's funny. Like you're seeing a teenager. In some cases, some of them, and they have held a baby, but like literally, they'll sit on the ground on a blanket and play with her for 20 minutes
Yeah.
and occupy her while you're over there working with one. It's one of our pitchers who's not going to be throwing that game, who's spending time with her while you're over there prepping the pitchers for the game. So it's really cool seeing that happen.
Yeah. It's fun. You say that, but I also laugh because she was probably, I guess, 2 months old, and we went to a Texas game, and Citlali Gutierrez and Leanne Good played for us, and so I sent both of them a text. I was like, "Hey, JC's upstairs. If you want to come see her before you guys head out." Citlali came right up, and Citlali was like, I don't know how to hold a baby,"
That
and I
doesn't
was like,
surprise
"Put
me.
your
It's
arms like
sitting
this."
on old baby. Yeah,
But even then, she was like afraid to move. She's like, "I'm gonna drop her." I'm like, "She doesn't wiggle yet. You're good. Just hold her there." So,
that's cool. That's
but
cool.
yeah, I mean, it's cool. And I think, you mentioned Bracken, and I think I talk to our girls about it a lot. It's like, you never know who's watching. And even
Mhm.
though we're at the travel ball level right now, and it's not where you're on TV and it's not college where everyone like has teams that they're fans of, but there are still eyes watching you. And, Bracken still comes home. Is anybody playing this weekend? Do we get to watch anybody? She loves MD. So if Louisiana's playing, she wants to watch
I
Mac.
love MD. I miss MD.
We all do.
I wish I could
Um,
write her name in the lineup one more time.
right?
One more
And
time.
obviously she follows Texas, so she knows all our kids that are there.
That's
Leanne,
Maya Davis for anybody that doesn't know who MD is.
yeah,
Like we shorten everything, so it's yeah.
yeah. So and then she'll ask about AC on occasion. Sorry,
Ayana Coleman.
Ayana Coleman. I was like,
Yeah.
I knew Coleman. I'm like, we never even say her first name.
No.
But she'll ask about all of them, and it's just a reminder that it doesn't matter who it is, someone's watching you,
Yeah.
and they whether, and Bracken's not playing softball, but she can tell you about them as people because she sat in the dugout and sometimes probably had distracting conversations. But she got to see female athletes at the best of the best at that point in their career,
Yeah.
and so yeah,
It was
it's fun. It's
it
fun
was
to be
cool
able to
seeing
see.
her. It really was cool seeing Bracken interact with them that summer. Because we had a really old team, and so they were on the edge of leaving, um, moving on to college, and it was just really cool seeing that experience. So let's talk about your history in the game. Like you've been around a minute. I see a couple jerseys back there with 5
Jersey.
rings. Yeah, a couple. I don't know. There's a couple awards back there. I guess you were all right back in the day, but talk about, and you don't have to go like you don't have to go item by item, but like talk about your place in history in the game. Like I know you don't like necessarily just talking about yourself about that, but I think that it's important for maybe the person who doesn't know you. Like you have to acknowledge that your history in the game is significant, right? I know how significant it is walking through the freaking airport with you and being at McDonald's and trying to, like, I'm having to pull you out like, Cat, stop, stop. We got to go. We got to get on the plane. We got to stop signing autographs because you'll stop and sign autographs for whoever. But talk about your history in the game and where you think your place is in the history of the game, and then where you'd like to maybe see your place gravitate to.
Yeah. Well, grew up in Houston. I started playing late, really comparatively to most people. Didn't play travel ball till I was like 11-ish, I think. And then obviously played travel. I really only played for two teams. I played for one team from 11 until 16. 15. And then after 1 year of 16U, I changed teams. You know, great conversation between my dad and my coaches just about where I was compared to where the rest of the team was, and they knew it was time for me to go find a different team and compete at a different level. And I laugh because my dad was like, yeah, we're gonna move you up. I want you to get hit around so you learn something. And
You didn't get
I
hit
moved
around.
up. I
You
didn't get hit around.
Yeah, that didn't
I
happen.
didn't get hit around. But it was still fun. And it was still a learning experience being so young and being around athletes that were getting ready to go to college and only, 1 year away from it. So played for the Katy Cruisers. The fun part of that is we were the first non-California team to win what was ASA Nationals at the time. Now USA Softball. It's rebranded. And then we were the first team to go back-to-back champions. So we won that in
Is
2000.
that good? Is that a good thing?
Yeah, sometimes. So we won that in 2000, 2001. I actually made the national team as an 18-year-old, 4 days after high school graduation. So played with Team USA for 10 years while going to college. Then played professionally from 2007 till 2013, I think. Yeah, no, I was going to retire in 13. I played till 18. Or 15, sorry, eight seasons.
Michael Jordan. You were Michael Jordan. You just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, no. Well, I was gonna retire in 13 simply because at some point in life I had said, well, when I'm 30, I should probably start doing something else. And then we started season. I was still enjoying it, so I kept playing.
Cat, stop for a second. Stop for a second. Think how stupid that sounds. Like you were in your prime at 30 years old. Not that you were stupid. I'm saying that our sport does not provide a professional outlet that a player that is 30 in the prime of her athletic. I mean, you were probably the best you probably were ever going to be at that point, right? I mean, I'm not saying, everybody hits that plateau. There becomes a time where you start kind of working the downside. I don't know if you didn't have a downside. That's so stupid with you, but you understand where I'm going with that. Like that would even creep into your mind at 30 years old.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, and that's a whole nother topic that could be an hour conversation, but it goes between like you're paying your own insurance, you're having to make ends meet in between seasons. So at what point do you decide that you have to go something that can be more lucrative or continue playing? But thankfully, I fell back in love with playing that season. I will admit there was a surgery in there that like playing just became a little bit more difficult. And I was like, maybe this is starting my downside, and let me just get out before it's too bad. And thankfully, I didn't get out because I think I had some of my best seasons after that. But yeah, so like I said, made the national team in 01, was fortunate as in between my sophomore and junior year of college. I made the 2004 Olympic team, which dubbed the dream team. And you look at it, some of the biggest and best names that have ever played softball were on that team. And I was fortunate to be the youngest and be able to be part of it. Soaked up way more than I think I realized at the time, but look at it now. And a lot of those athletes were huge influences in my life. And to be honest, why I was able to come back and play when I was in my late 30s. Which none of them were surprised about. So that was kind of the running joke too when I did unretire for the 2020 Olympics. Also made the 2008 team, which was another great experience. Obviously not the ending we wanted. But I think the interesting part of that is really for the first time in my career, suffered probably, I call it sports depression. But the outcome wasn't what we wanted. We all came home, and I think all of us thought that loss was going to kind of be tagged on us forever, and you don't know how to deal with it. And then you wonder, you just start going down a spiral of all these random thoughts. Like I laugh now, but there was a point that I told someone, like, maybe I should just be done. Like, what if I lose my next game? And then what if I never win a game again? And someone's like, you really think you're never going to win a game again? Like, because you lost one game on a big stage, you think you're never going to lose. And it sounds silly now, but you're in such a place that you're like, you can't fathom, well, why is this so unrealistic?
You know what's crazy, Kat, is like you just highlighted a point. Like we always say to the girls, like, hey, your identity is not tied to your outcomes, right? Like if you just say that to them and they don't, maybe they appreciate it sometimes, but we always keep having to remind them, like, hey, I tend to call myself the Buffalo Bills of travel softball. Like I've been to the international championship game like 5 times, I've only won it once. So there's 4 times we've walked out there and threw it all on the line and didn't win, right? Like, and people, and I keep trying to tell them, like, it's not, but you do feel it. And like the best in the world is having thoughts like, well, maybe I don't win another game. Like, so like if they can hear you say that, any player out there that's listening to this could hear that, whoa, Kat Osterman questioned herself as it related to an outcome of a game. That's real. Like if the best in the world can do that, then you can. It's not abnormal. Doesn't make
No,
it
it's
right.
not.
Doesn't make it right, but it's not abnormal in any way.
No, and I think that's where when you ask, and we've done this exercise, I mean, on top of all the playing, I coached college for 12 years and alongside of playing to be able to, help make ends meet. But a lot of times you ask a kid, finish the sentence, softball is. And how many of them will finish the sentence, softball is life? And I'm like, as somebody who did it for a living and for a really long time, I still don't know that I would have said softball is life. Like softball is my passion. Softball is what I love. Softball is, what I love to work at, what I try to perfect, whatever.
Clearly,
But
look at the number of things you're involved in still. Like, it means a lot to you.
right. So, but it's not life because there's
No.
so many other aspects of life, but we let them get consumed with it to where that's all they're thinking about. And
No.
don't get me wrong, there are times in an athlete's career where yes, you let it consume you because that's your point of growth or that's the most important season for something. But it's not who we are and it's not the end all be all at all. And so
Do you think that this is where my head is sometimes, because I always wonder sometimes, and you see me get passionate with our players about the winning process, right? Like there's a difference between your competitiveness and your will to not lose a game, but realizing that anytime you put yourself out there on the line in a game and it matters to you to the point that you consume yourself, I'm going to win this game. Because I watched you play the game. Like you were not friendly in the dugout with people. Like you were fixated on the winning process. I think it's one of the things that made you such a really good competitor. Because for a long time, I got to watch you from afar. And I tell people that when they ask me about you coaching with me now, I said, yeah, you don't realize, man, like think about being a fan of someone for like I'm involved in softball. So like for me, I'm a fan of female athletes. I'm a fan of all kind of athletes, but in the sport I love the most, I'm a fan of female athletes, which I hold in incredible high regard. Like I had a lecturer coaching the NPF for a couple of years. I saw up close when you put 18 of the best softball players on the field together against one another, what that can look like, how incredible that product is on the field. It pisses me off. This is a cool thing about this, but I can say bad words sometimes. Full disclaimer, sometimes I talk like a normal person, like the Pat McAfee said, this is how normal people talk. So if I say a bad word and it offends you, all I can say is, well, that's just what happens. So if I say that, that's my disclaimer. Try to keep it as clean, but it pisses me off that you guys don't have that outlet. I'm going to keep going back to the pro thing, but the difference between the winning process and your passion to win versus it consuming you to the point where you're like, this is who I am. There's a big difference between those two. I think the best in the world are able to separate that the minute they walk out the gate. They understand that this is not my life. This is what I'm invested in and try to be successful at.
yeah. Well, you and I have talked about it before too. And like, as you said, it's the process. So while yes, you can turn it off before you leave the gate or before you leave the stadium, you also turn it on at a certain point. And so like for me, I go back to college. I drove from my apartment, windows down, blasted my CDs, just carefree as I'll get out on the way to the game.
What did you listen to back then?
I have all sorts of things. You pull out CDs and you'd be like, you listen to this? And I'm like, that week I probably did.
Yeah.
Granted, I was also in the age of burning mixed CDs, so it was probably a mix of from whoever had the best music taste at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so, but I would let it play. Usually, probably old school. Well, it wasn't old school then, but old school rap or
the fact that Kat Osterman listened to rap music is impressive to me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like the Usher halftime show just now was like me
You like that? That was good. That was good.
And even, I mean,
Yeah.
even 2 or 3 years ago when they had Eminem and the whole eclectic group of, I mean, that's all of our music from college. But you know, I drove to the stadium carefree, like got there, we would have pregame meal. I was still relaxed and it was like, okay, the second it was time to put our jersey on, I'm done. I'm done goofing off. I'm done having the conversation about where are we going for dinner or what happened today. Like for me, that was my on switch. So the second I put my jersey on, in college was okay, it's go time. If that, I mean,
You
that meant stretching to make sure I was ready, like mindset, going over my scouting reports, everything.
from afar,
Um,
Cat, it almost looked like you were mad. Like you played mean. Like,
I did,
yeah,
I did. Coach
yeah,
Clark always joked that she knew what kind of mood I was in because when I was ready, like I had the Oscar eyebrows from Oscar the Grouch.
I like it. Yeah, I
And
like it.
I still have my indentions. They
I've
won't go away.
seen I've seen those eyebrows come out. You've shown them a couple times in the dugout.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that it's super important for young players, especially. And I think sometimes, and not that male athletes don't go through this. I mean, they tie their identity to the successes they either have on the field or the court or whatever that looks like. They do the same thing. But I think for females, a lot of times I feel like they're trying to prove something. Like we're just as good, or like that was my the biggest thing I didn't like about the MPF was I always felt like so many of them were always trying to prove something, right? Like you're so good anyway, you don't have to like just make it about the game, right? Like you're so good, and it disappoints me the barriers and the hurdles that female athletes have to try to overcome. Sometimes it's already hard enough, right? Game's
Yeah.
already hard. It's the hardest. I tell girls all the time, you're a softball player. You chose the hardest sport on planet Earth, right? Like I try to put it in my mind. Tell me a harder sport, right? Like
Right.
it doesn't exist, and so
No.
you're already in a real high regard for me just because you chose to do it. Right now, if you chose to do it, you already know it's the hardest sport on planet Earth. Well, then now let's do it the right way. Like I just think that there's something to that. So I think it's really cool that you shared the fact that is JC under the table?
Oh, the dog is, and I think
Okay.
we have some coming in the house. So Joey was trying to figure out where the dog was.
You're good. Just as long if it's JC, then that's a whole different story. Like she can just
No,
come on.
she's
Yeah.
sleeping.
Um, let's transition into your thoughts on the sport today versus what you like the major differences you see that you're seeing in the sport today that are maybe that you like or dislike, either one. What are you seeing? Because you call a lot of games.
Yeah. Well, I think, and this is no disservice to anyone I played the game with, but I think the difference is that we are training athletes at a young age differently than when I was growing up. Don't get me wrong, I had pitching lessons and I had hitting lessons. And you mentioned that I guess I'm a private instructor technically, although I don't just take on lessons to take on lessons. I am very particular about it and uh, do it wisely, I think, in my mind. But I probably approach my lessons the way they were approached with me. So I don't have a bunch of gadgets and all these different balls and all these different drills. Like for me, it's very matter of fact. Like you should have body awareness, which is fine in that regard. But I do think when it comes to strength training and agility training and movements, we have way more knowledge now than we did when I was growing up. And because the sport was still young, I mean,
Yeah.
there was a pro league when I was in junior high and high school that people don't even know existed. And I know only because my grandparents lived in Tampa and we went to games. So, I had a unique situation where I was exposed to pro softball at that age. And I was like, oh, and so I kind of watched athletes when we could. But not everyone had that and not everyone knew that that existed. And you got to see the Olympic team in 96 and 2000. So once every 4 years, you get to see the elite of the elite come around. Well, you still don't have access now like we do to social media to see how they're training and what things they're doing. And so I think we're training our athletes different, which makes them a lot more athletic. I think obviously your elite athletes are athletic and elite athletes. But now we're allowing more young girls to be more athletic because we're training them from a young age, which has made the game a little bit more dynamic. I mean, you see more power hitters. You see a lot more, just athleticism and defensive plays, hit and runs, forcing action. A lot of, on the run throws aren't an anomaly anymore. It's not like, wow, oh my God, she can do that. Everyone can do, like, everyone's training that way now.
You know what's nuts
So
to me is back in the day, it almost felt like there were power players, like players. If you just offensively, we just take the offensive side of it. There were power players and there were speed players, and there were two different people, right? And
yeah,
so there was that. Now you can't tell the difference between a power player and a speed player. That's
right.
to me the difference in the game. And I always tell people the athletes are so good. The field is not big; it can't hold them. Like the field can't hold them. Like the space. It's a math problem. The space on the field. The athletes cover so much ground these days. The ballpark is what. And I'm not advocating for the fence when we move back, right? Because a ball over the fence is a ball over the fence. It's still hard to do, but when they do hit it, it's 270, 260.
Yeah.
They're shots. But sometimes that's a kid that would have been classified if you looked at her body and the way she plays the game defensively, whether she's a speed player or whatever, you'd say, oh, that's a fast player. She don't do it. Dude, that's what makes Oklahoma's lineup so scary is they do that 1 through 9. And
Right.
it's scary. It just never ends.
Well, I think look back to it, and I mentioned the 2004 team, and go through that roster, and you can say, yeah, speed or power, except for a few. Like you look at Jessica Mendoza. She's one of the first that would have been both because
Both,
she would drop a bunt and run it out and steal bases, but she was a power threat. A lot of people don't relate Kelly Kretschmann. She had speed. She mainly was power, but she would drop a bunt on you
Yeah.
even until she was
But
38
Caitlin Lowe and Natasha would have been classified more speed
speed
players.
players. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And like, don't get me wrong, Tasha could occasionally drop a bomb on you, but she would have been classified as a speed player. But there were only a handful that could do both. And now I think we're training athletes to be able to do both. You have a fewer number of your Natashas and Caitlins who are primarily slappers who added hitting and power games as their career progressed. They both swung away way more in pro ball than they did in college. But we're training those athletes now to be athletes and be able to do everything as opposed to putting them in that shell. Which I think is good. And I also sometimes I love slappers. I think they're so dynamic to watch when they can control, they can really control the bat head. And Caitlin and Natasha were great at that. And I do still think there's a place for it in our game. So I wish some athletes would just focus a little bit more on being able to do that. We've
sometimes they try to beat people they can't beat. And that's what gets them in trouble. That's what gets them in trouble.
Yeah. But I think as a whole, it's just being able to watch college lineups, and like you said, 1 through 9, everyone's an athlete and everyone is, and not that they weren't when I played, but it's just a different degree of it now, in my opinion. And the power numbers, have gone up. Obviously, bat technology has improved, as you would hope it would. And then now we have just all the technology that can help you train. Pitchers can see spin rate, spin direction, movement patterns. Hitters can see launch angle, exit velo, so you have ways to like tangibly judge yourself now too while you're training. Where before it was just like, oh yeah, that feels better. Oh, the ball went farther today. And just that was kind of, other than radar guns, we didn't have anything else to measure ourselves on. So I like it. I think it's great. I'm old school, so like the training piece to me, I think body awareness is still so key. And sometimes when we train athletes, we don't let them become aware of what they're doing. We just tell them all the time what they did wrong, and they don't know how to feel what they did wrong first. Or we give them a quick fix, and that in pitching, there's no real quick fixes, but all the parents want like, what drill will fix this? I'm like, well, she needs to go out and focus on this, and this happening for that to be fixed. But it's been fun to see. And I just think it makes the game faster to a certain degree. So many hard hit balls, great action from defensive players. Obviously there's more home runs being launched. But it's exciting. And coming from somebody who played a lot of 1-0, 2-1 games, as exciting as those are as a pitcher, because it means we're doing our job. And those are the games that got like me really intense and ready to go. Like, 6th inning and we're winning 1-0. Like, I'm there. There's nothing that's getting me out of this like tunnel.
I don't like 1-0 games. I don't like them.
Well, most people don't. And so there's less of those, which means when those do happen, you just saw
Yeah,
most of the time you just saw something really incredible. So
yeah,
somewhere a pitcher or a defense or something did something to really keep an offensive game at bay, because it
for
has
sure.
become a more offensive game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of that, let's talk about the current state of college softball. Um, you think it's in a good place? You think it's going in the right direction?
I do. I think there's a lot more parity. Obviously when I was being recruited, Arizona and UCLA were going back and forth for national championships. So those were kind of the two places you wanted to end up. Obviously Patty has built that program into something absolutely phenomenal.
They're kind of good.
Um,
They're kind of good.
just kinda.
Yeah.
But it's been fun to see. And, 05 Michigan won the first national championship to go east of the Mississippi, which was a big deal. And so it's been fun to see from where it was to see it grow. And, the pack used to, and I'm not saying the pack is not still good, they're good, but, SEC is the main conversation when you talk about perennial conferences now. And granted, this could all blow up in the next couple of years with conference realignment. So who knows? But
How hard's the
um,
SEC gonna be? Goodness gracious.
so the conference realignment is something that, like, it's gonna happen. It's inevitable. We already know it's happening. It's just it's heartbreaking to see, just as a softball fan, because the pack had so many great rivalries. The Big 12 had, I mean, Texas OU rivalry will still be intact as they both move, but OU Oklahoma State, that rivalry, and just the Big 12 has been the Big 12. So for me, that's a little weird, but they do meet up with A&M again. Texas does, so that rivalry will be
That's cool.
renewed. Which for
Yeah,
in-state, that's really cool.
that's real cool.
I think that's probably one thing that's in-state athletes here in Texas have missed out on, is that rivalry was so good, in the sense of, one, we just always wanted to win, but two, we all grew up together. So you have friends on both sides. And so you go compete as hard as you can, may get in little verbal tiffs on the field. And then as soon as the game's over, you're like racing out of your
Yeah.
dugout to go meet them and say hi before they jump on a bus. So it's one of those, because our athletes grow up playing against each other and with each other, that when they choose their schools, and that rivalry can be a really, really heated, but a really fun one too.
It's
So I'm
crazy.
excited.
It's crazy to me where college softball has gotten to, in the sense that, I mean, this is not to bash them, but like watching the Texas UCLA thing this last year, like you couldn't have envisioned that happening. And then the very
No.
next day, here comes Oklahoma State. Like that's not something you could have wrapped your head around 5-6 years ago. And that's not a bashing UCLA thing. That's a where the sport is thing. Like that, there's some really good softball players around the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, the parity is so great that you don't have to go cross country to play good softball anymore.
Yeah.
I stayed home because I wanted to help Texas become a top program. I mean, they had gone to the World Series in year 3, but I wanted it to be consistent. I wanted to try to beat the big dogs. That's just kind of my mentality. I didn't want to go join the big dogs and be national championship number 7 when you're going to have, 5 more and nobody's going to really remember who number 7 was. Granted, we didn't do it. We didn't win a championship, but every other box of what you could do in college softball was checked off.
But that, and I remember watching that, but we hadn't caught up with them yet. Like in the sense, like, and I say we hadn't caught up with them. The state of softball was still not fully developed in a lot of ways, I guess, right? So there wasn't as many good players to go around to create that parity.
Right.
You were you got what you guys tried to do, and what you stuck your neck out to do by staying here at Texas and trying to push them over the hump for that. One is incredible, because I guess you could have went anywhere you wanted. I'm assuming that's the case, but you chose to do that. But where the sport is today in that regard, is no telling. Like, it's no telling. I went and watched Texas practice in the fall, and I think you and I talked about that. I walked out there. Those are grown folk. That team ain't no joke, and that's not just because we're from Texas, but I can't say that was always the case 4 or 5 years ago. When I'd look at that team, I'd be like, yeah, they're nice, they're good. I don't know if they have enough. I'm looking at them now, I'm like, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that's part of the parity. You no longer sit there
Mhm.
and wait to see if the best arm is going to go to the West Coast. Like they could go anywhere in the country. And on top of it, and the portal's a whole nother subject, but it helps is some of the parity is the fact that you have mid majors that can contend now. So you see Power Fives.
Charlotte being able to compete and win the game against Florida State on their opening
Charlotte
day.
defeating
Yeah,
Florida State.
yeah.
I coached at Texas State for 6 years. We had a year where we beat Texas 3 or 4 times.
Mhm.
Like it's a good feeling when you're a mid-major and you're having to fight and claw for kids. Sometimes kids would rather walk on and hardly play at a Power Five when they would start every day for you. But now with the portal, those kids who do decide to go to a Power Five and maybe a year or two in, they realize, I'm not going to get the playing time, or I really want to play instead of being a role player. They jump in, they can get to a competitive mid-major, and now your mid-majors are competing come postseason, and there's a lot of upsets. I mean,
The portal's
we
having
watched
a huge impact on us at the travel ball level. Like I was trying to
it
explain that. I was trying to explain that to somebody, and I think it's incumbent upon us. And then that I'm talked to you a lot about this. Like we have to change how we're prepped. And and this isn't necessarily. I mean, like I said, we don't have any rules on this, so I can plug these two things back here. The alliance has helped prep our players to step in and play, be more ready day one because we mimic college softball in the format, having to go through that regional, super regional, beat somebody 2 out of 3 times, grind your way through what is considered the Elite Eight, which is the World Series format, and get yourself to a championship game. Oh, and then have to figure out a way to beat that team 2 out of 3 times, which we still haven't figured out. This year I think is going to be where we're going to figure it out. But it's hard, and then you mix in the portal, and you got kids that are going there, and I think it's affecting recruiting. People ask me about that. I think it's affecting the value of the high school player. It's like running backs in the NFL. Back in the day, people would pay exorbitant amounts of money to get the best running back on their team, and in some ways, they're looking at like, I'm not going to overpay for that position. The automatics, the no doubter high school athlete, they're good. Like because it's envisioned they'll be a contributor day one.
right.
College coaches have to win now. And so when part in their head, they're thinking, well, do I recruit a high school kid that I'm committing to for 4 years? I'm stuck with that player for 4 years. Stuck is probably not the right word, but you know where I'm going with that because it's a 4-year commitment at the Power Five
Right.
level. Or do I not overpay for that position, save some money in my budget, which is my 12 scholarships, for the kid in the portal who's got some collegiate numbers, and I'm going to go get that kid and try to have a more win now mentality. And that I feel that like at our level, at the travel ball level, it is 100% forced us to gain some perspective about making day one ready athletes. And I'm proud of that. Like if you look at a lot of our freshmen, they step in and they're able to play day one. It was cool watching Caden get after it. I mean, she didn't look like she was overwhelmed. She's playing UCLA.
Yeah.
Like think about it. Like day one, you're playing your first game of your career, you're playing UCLA. Not every player is capable of doing that, and this is a kudos to her because it's a ton of hard work and those kind of things. But I think it was fun like watching MD and those guys last year, like they Goody and I'm just talking about our kids, and that's just
Yeah.
us. I mean, you talk about what Mike and them and Tony and those guys are doing, Batbusters, Marty, and all these Ryan with Ace, like all these Greg with Iowa from Maryland, Tegan. I mean, Tegan don't look like a freshman.
No. No, and I think you're not wrong. It is for the non-no doubters or the questionable, the bubble kids, the portals can be a detriment. I also
Yeah.
think now that all the extra COVID year kids
This
are
is the
about to be
last year for
done.
that, right? I think this is the last
Yeah.
year where those guys have that year. Yeah.
Yeah. So that I think will start. I don't know if the action of the portal will decrease, but I feel like it might because you're going to have less of those grad transfers and
Mhm.
because the percentage of kids that go in the portal that get picked up is still rather small.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of kids that don't play that go in and then they don't get picked up because they don't have the numbers. So yes, there are kids, that get 30, 40 at bats maybe in a season, go in the portal if their average is good enough. A mid-major might grab a kid from a Power Five or something like that. But I think the difference too, though, is our athletes, like you said, and we made this point this fall to ours, is you're going to go into college and to compete against athletes that have just spent 20 hours a week playing softball for 6, 7, 8, 9 months of the year.
In some
Are
cases,
you
23-year-old women.
right? Are you putting in that same anything close to that same
Mhm.
amount of commitment to your game to be ready when you get to college? Or are you thinking you're 1 hour in the cage, maybe twice a week,
Yeah.
plus my high school practice, which flip a coin on whether it's a decent practice or not, is going to prepare you to be ready in 3.5, 4 months when you get to your college.
And most,
Um,
even ours, most of them aren't doing enough to be ready for that.
no, we
Yeah.
made that point to them this fall,
Mhm.
and one of ours came and was like, I've never ever thought about it like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, you want to go in and contribute day one, but they've logged thousands more hours than you've even thought about logging.
Mhm.
So what are you going to do to make that gap smaller? And when are you going to do it? Because you
And
also can't wait till July and think come mid-August when you get there, all of a sudden that gap is decreased.
so many of them just assume, and this is including this is our players. But you just looked at the general
Yeah.
across the board. So many of them just think I'm good enough. I'm gonna go to college and I expect to play right away. And guess what? There's softball players there, ain't just handing you their spot. Like you literally got to go take it in a lot of ways, right? Or you've got to be the read. You've got to be so good that a college coach is sitting in a dugout going, about to write the lineup and going, how do we not give this freshman a chance? Right. And if you're not prepared for that, you're going to be behind. Then you're playing the behind part while you're in college versus
Right.
you're behind in high school. Get it going. Like get yourself prepared because we still don't have players that train the right way. Like they just don't
No.
do it. Not enough. They don't put the right emphasis on strength training and recovery and all those things that you and I talk about a bunch with them. But yeah, man, it's crazy.
We'll go back to the first summer I was with you, and we had that group that, I mean, ridiculous how many good athletes we had. And yes,
Could
they were
that team
all,
have beat hold on, could that team have played with the Katy Cruisers?
I could have played with them. Would they have hit me?
Whoa,
No.
whoa. Played with them?
Come
Man,
on.
I don't
No,
know.
none of
I don't it may have been 1-0, but I'm telling you, like you'd had your hands full with that team. 18-year-old Cat would have had her hands full with that group.
I don't know. You have to remember 18-year-old Cat threw all
I
rise balls.
know. I got you. I got you. I got you.
But no, I mean they were, and I told them they were as good as the team that I had seen put together. And
Yeah.
like you said, though, we had out of what 12, at least 8 were probably on the opening day. 8 or 9 were on the opening
Yeah.
day
Couple
starting
of
list.
them. Yeah.
Take away the pitchers, because most freshman pitchers, and I'm not saying ever because we just saw, as you mentioned, Tegan Kavan start for Texas, but most freshman pitchers aren't starting the very first game of the year.
No.
But even then, they were good enough to be starting when they got there. And I told them over and over, you guys have no idea how hard it's about to get.
Yeah.
Like you have no, you think it's hard now, you have no idea. And, we saw Ayana Coleman at a camp in A&M when we were there working it. And the first thing she said was, you were right.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea how hard this was going to be.
Why do they
And
listen to you so much better than they listen to me? I tell them that all the time, but they actually listen to you. So I don't get that, but I got it. It's okay. But no, you're 1,000% right. Like they get that aha moment somewhere in there. Like I remember last year when ULL, they're Louisiana now. I can't keep calling them ULL.
I do that
Louisiana.
too.
Yeah. So when UL came to Texas and played, and that was competitive. They had a couple games there. It was tough. And I remember talking to Maya Davis, MD, and I said, how hard is it? Like, what did you think? And she's like, Coach, the softball stuff. And she wasn't being like arrogant. Like she was like, on the field, the softball stuff is not hard. I'm ready. I'm prepared for this. It's all the other stuff. It's everything else that goes on top of the softball stuff that makes this so hard. And they're young and they're immature and they're kids, right? They're kids and they're asked to play on television in front of thousands of people and not show their emotion when they fail and all these things that over a course of 60 games, or you get to the postseason, which is even more of a bigger highlight. I think about Mia Scott as a freshman getting to the championship game, and I'll never forget Scotty in a rundown in that game 1 against UCLA. And was it UCLA they played game one?
Mhm.
Yeah, and she's in a rundown, and she's between home and third, and she's laughing. If you go back and look at it, she's laughing in the middle of the rundown, and she's just having a good time because she was able to play the game. I mean, she didn't look like no freshman. And Scotty, hey, you and I both know Scotty has her own faults, right? Scotty is Scotty, but when it comes to softball, like she's one of the best. She's one of the best ever in my mind. Like her skill set. You talk about speed, power, athleticism. Like she's one of the best softball players I've ever had the privilege of coaching. You know, and I've been blessed to coach a bunch of them. But her, Maya Davis, those guys, like they make the game easy in a lot of ways. But it was the other stuff.
Mhm.
It was the college environment that became really
Yeah.
hard.
You know, they think it's hard now, and it's like, no, you're not waking up at 5:30 for 6 o'clock weights. You're not having to rush and go figure out when you're going to shower before going to class from 8 to 12. And then you got to get lunch and get over the field because you have practice from 1 to 4, 1 to 5, depending. Oh, then you have study hall. And while all this is going on, you're thinking about like, when am I going to get to relax? Well, you don't until study hall's over, which is 9 o'clock, and you go to sleep, rinse and repeat.
You
Um,
didn't, but you also didn't mix in there. You went over 4 the day before, and you're worried about getting on the field today.
That too.
Yeah.
That too. And now with social media, like you're
Yeah.
0 for 4, and because it was twice with runners on, you have someone telling you that you're not good or whatever. Like there's just so much that goes into it. But even just the day-to-day stuff, you know,
Hard.
like right now you get to wake up at 8:30 and roll into high school. If you're a senior, you probably have some classes, periods that you don't have to take class because that's a thing now. I wish that had been a thing when I was in school, but we had to go to all 7 periods regardless.
Yeah.
You know, we are a teacher's aide one period where you probably sit on your phone instead of, hey, what can I be reading? What could I be listening to? What could I be watching that can get me better? But I'm watching TikTok about tasting food or the newest makeup or whatever.
Oh, they're just thinking about the TikTok they're gonna make, or they're making TikToks.
Or
Yeah,
they're making
yeah,
a TikTok.
yeah.
Can't say that you and I haven't been in the middle of
No,
some of those.
I don't have a problem with them doing that. I think that they've got to continue to mature and figure out the time and place, and we talk about that with them and how hard that focus can be. Um, I want to finish up here talking about just what was one of the best games you watched last week, and who are you looking forward to seeing play this week with Clearwater coming up, and it's a lot of really good softball coming up. Are you calling any games this weekend?
Yeah, well, I actually start tonight. I call Wichita State and Auburn tonight. Have Clemson, South Carolina, UC Davis, I think all this week. Have Texas State Sam in person tomorrow. But one from last week I got to call, so therefore watch the Oklahoma Washington game. One, I wish there was instant replay in Puerto Vallarta
Yeah,
for a number
yeah.
of reasons, but there was a play at the plate where
Was she safe
Washington,
or out in your mind? What do you think?
she was safe. She was
Yeah, I
safe.
thought so too. Yeah, it's tough.
So
Tough
that would
call.
have, it is a tough call. It's a bang bang call, but again, when you don't
Mhm.
have instant replay, you have no shot at being able to reverse it whatsoever.
Yeah,
But what was just impressive to me was one, Washington's capability of jumping early to get a lead. But then two, when Ruby Malin came in relief of Lindsay Lopez, the first 3 innings Ruby Malin threw were just, if I could record those and play them over, it was like picture perfect as far as movement going, painting the corners, wasn't leaving things middle, didn't stray from a game plan. Like if you watch, they didn't mix just to mix.
mark
She threw
that
drop.
academy. That has to go into our academy pitcher training that we got coming up, right?
Okay.
Those 3 innings.
But
Yeah.
from a pitching coach standpoint, they didn't mix just to mix. She threw lots of drops, occasionally snuck a rise ball in there, got him to chase because now they're seeing something up in the zone. But when it worked, she just kept with it. And it was just, I mean, it was 3 of the most masterful innings. And don't get me wrong, Ruby Malin had an incredible freshman year, but I could just see the growth in her of knowing what her ball was doing, knowing she knew where she was putting it. And now I think the piece is, OU started to get to her just a little bit. She walked somebody in an inopportune time, and from then it just kind of shook her up just a little bit. So now it's that
Yeah.
toughen that armor just a little bit. But from a pitching standpoint, it was awesome to see. But then, you also look at it, OU, every time their back's against the wall, 99.9% of the time they figure out how to come through and do it. And
They're good at the winning process. They're really good at
They
that.
are.
Yeah.
And I tweeted it out, but you know, I don't think Riley Boone gets enough credit down there in the 9-hole for what she does for that lineup.
She's really
I mean,
good. Yeah.
she stood in and swung away and laced something into left field to get the game-winning RBI. And, you know, everyone talks about Jada Coleman and Kinsey Hansen and Brito and
Yeah.
Tiara Jennings and, you know, name after name. And I don't think Riley Boone gets enough credit for what she does
But
down
you
there.
just
So
described how tough they are to beat. 1 to 9.
Mhm.
Who won the game for them? They're 9-hole. Right?
Right.
Like it just comes down to the challenge that you have to deal with a team that's that complete and OU, and they're good at the winning process. And man, it's so difficult to beat a team. I look at that. That's what Mike and those guys with Bat Busters, like you have to be really good at the winning process, and you cannot make any mistakes, and
Right.
you have to hope. And in this case, a lot of times you hope you bat last. I mean, that's really what it can sometimes come down to is, can you bat
No,
last?
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And you know, Texas UCLA, the first game was really competitive too. And I thought it was fun to see, as you mentioned, Tegan Kavan get the start. I
She was
laughed
tough,
because,
man. She was tough.
well, and I laughed because, you know, she had asked me before Christmas break, like, was there a time we could talk? She just wanted to talk about mindset going into the season as a freshman. And so we actually talked Wednesday night before they flew out there and had a really great conversation with her. And I said, you know, you probably will get the second start against UCLA. So go get your feet wet on, you know, Friday night and just, you know, get your feet wet, get comfortable, and then go get them on Saturday. And I watched them start Mac Morgan against USD, and I texting and said, who's starting against UCLA? And he's like, Tegan. I was like, ooh. Like my head as a pitching coach, sometimes not to protect them, but just let them get college softball first.
Catch your breath. Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, they threw her in and she looked like a vet, man. I mean, I would.
But Kat, that goes back to their preparation,
It
right?
does.
Like we've seen that kid in big battles over the last 2 or 3 years in the Alliance, trying to grind her way to the championship game. Like she's played against some really tough players. She did not look overwhelmed. She just pitched. She just
No.
made her pitches, man.
Yeah. Well, and the other part of that is, you know, they had inter squad for however long prior to season starting. And she talked about it. She was like, well, the last 2 inter squads, man, like, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's my pit. Like, I've gotten, basically, she said she got roughed up. And she was like, and it's just frustrating. And I'm like, I get it, because you think you should be dominating your own team, but they know what you're doing now. So you have to try to be smarter. I was like, but let's take that. And, you know, of course, now after the weekend, I joked and I was like, well, at least, you know, it's not just you, and that your offense is actually
pretty good,
capable of doing that to everyone.
Yeah.
But I think the other part of that is she opened herself up to, okay, how can I get better before I even start?
It's good.
You know, she reached out to me, hey, can I have a conversation? Like,
well, what maturity on her part, you know,
right.
to realize like,
and
hey, most of them think I'm good enough. My cup's full. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you know, it's one thing when our kids reach out because they know me. They've spent, you know, 2-3 years with me. This kid met me at the end of Alliance Nationals because we were all eliminated, said hi, met her, can't wait to watch you throw. And other than coming to practice and a couple of chit chats, like, but had the vulnerability to be like, hey, I think you can help me. Can we have a conversation? And then, like I said, she went out, she threw great. We got to see Sit Lally come in and close it out. And obviously, you know,
Sit's
Texas
good.
offense.
Sit's kind of good. Yeah. Sit can
It's
play.
better than Sit realizes. And I think that's kind of the fun part to watch for the next couple of years, is as she realizes how good she can get.
Well, when Sit
but
played for us,
offense.
Yeah, Texas offense kind of good.
Yeah.
Kind of good. But what a blessing for a player like, I mean, you could name any one of on their staff, but like could you have used that offense? Could that have been a thing that you could have benefited from a little bit?
It would have been nice. Yeah. That's all right.
Yeah, no, and that's not disparage to your teammates. Like, but when you've got a team that throws up 32 runs on a day, you know, one of those teams they played was UCLA. You got a little offense, and how that makes you feel ought to be a really you and I talked about this a bunch. I know zero about what it's like for a pitcher to be in that circle and have to make a pitch and have the ball in their hand every 20 seconds. They have to make a quality decision and they have to execute. There's a lot I think it's, like I said, it's one of the toughest sports in the world, and you're asking them to do something every 20 seconds. and they've
Right.
got to flush the one that just happened 20 seconds ago. We got hitters that can't flush an at bat for a whole game, and they've got to
Yeah.
flush a pitch that might have just got bounced off the moon, and they got to flush a pitch and go back, or they've got bases loaded and come in and make quality pitches. And so I have a lot of respect for pitchers and the way that they go about their business. They still drive me batshit crazy sometimes, but I love
If
them.
you're not, if you're not one, they drive anyone
Yeah.
that's not one
That's why I
crazy.
sit way at the other end of the dugout from you guys, because I don't want to hear all the stupid stuff they say. But at the same time, man, I don't want any part of it. Like that is such a hard thing that you guys have to go through, and you do an incredible job on the pitch calling side of it. What's a game you're looking forward to this week?
Well, obviously the super matchup between Texas and Tennessee, because that's what ended, Texas season last year. I know
Mhm.
I'm a little biased in Texas games, but I am interested just to see if that offense
Can they
can
back
do
it
that with
up? Can
Tennessee's
they back
pitching.
it
Yeah.
up? Yeah.
I'm interested to see if Kentucky stays hot. They have some good games out there in Clearwater, so they obviously had the two upsets of Stanford. So I'm interested to see them play and what's different. It's like what's different to where they're coming through with the big wins
Rachel
right
does
now.
such a good job with those guys every year.
She
They're
does.
tough. Yeah, they're
She
tough.
does. But yeah, those are the two that stand out right now. I'm excited calling wise just to get to see Clemson. I think John Rittman has done an incredible job with that young program to be as good as they are.
Duke stuff. Good north. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to see Duke last weekend. They look good, but yeah, it's fun.
Maya
I
Burgess
don't get to
hit a
watch
home run on her first collegiate at bat.
who?
Maya
Oh,
Burgess.
Maya. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
How
wasn't
cool
on
is
that
that?
game, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty cool. So
James texted me and was all fired up. I said, that's good. That doesn't happen for most players.
it doesn't. It
No.
doesn't. But yeah, I like the fact, and we talk about how the game's grown. I was laughing because there was a tweet that someone's like, there's not any softball on the net on like all the streaming platforms I subscribe to this weekend. I'm like, man, it's opening weekend. Back when I played, you didn't even get on TV until conference.
Yeah.
I think it was my junior year. They were finally televising from Palm Springs, I think it was actually. And that was the first time they had done preseason softball at all.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal to get two games from Palm Springs on TV in, into February, early March. You didn't have to wait till conference play. And now we have games opening weekend on ESPN, but we also have all these other things being streamed on different platforms. And I'm sitting here like loving it. And we have people that are mad that it's not on, on ESPN all day.
I was sitting in the Kakata bar. You haven't been in the new version of the Kakata bar because it's gotten bigger. But I was sitting in the Kakata bar with one TV quad. I had 4 games on the screen, and then another game and another game. So I was watching 6 softball games at one time. I may or may not have had a cold beer in my hand, but I was watching 6 softball games at one time. And just think about that for a second, where the sport's going.
Yeah.
Like literally. And I was watching
Yeah.
every level for the most part, right? Like I was watching a mid-major game over here, some really good games, Power 5 games over here. It was just really cool to see that's where our sport's gone to. So
Yeah,
it's cool.
it's fun. It's fun to have access to all of that, be able to watch it all. I learned how to do the quad on my TV for the first time this weekend. Thank you, Amanda Scarborough.
It's the best. Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, we were watching it and she screened it. I was like, I don't know how to do that. And she's like, what? So I got a video play-by-play instructions on how to set up my quad. So
I was trying to
now
convince Irma to let me put a bigger TV in there just so I could make the quad bigger. She wasn't.
well,
she wasn't.
I think we just got a bigger TV in our living room as we speak right now.
There you go. I like Joey. Joey's got game. That's what I like about him.
But yeah, well, yeah, because the other one's going, over to the card house. So
let's go. Hey, the card house. Just give a plug to the card house.
Yeah,
close, right?
We are close. We are real close. We just got to get the final permit from the city. But yeah, so my husband, unbeknownst to me prior to getting married, pretty, I won't say avid, but a semi-avid poker player. And after a conversation one day, I came home and said, life goal, own a business, 2 rental properties. We do already have 1 rental property in Port Aransas. But we looked at different businesses, Chick-fil-A, but you have to be willing to move wherever they want you to open one. And not going to move. And so I looked at different restaurants. And then one day he came home and said, I think we can open a poker house. And he had a whole plan and he's put it in place. And we're
Go.
hopefully within, I would hope in the next month, I would hope in the next couple of weeks, but probably a month to plan the grand opening and stuff. But a couple months away. So anyone who's in and around New Braunfels, there will be a poker house up and running here in the near future over by Freiheit. And yeah, we benefit the guys at Freiheit, Cody and Leslie, our investors, and obviously you, Bo, and Scott, and I think Kevin is part of that group, invested with us, and another friend of mine from Houston. So
Excited.
we are, yeah, we're gonna be business owners.
It's
We can
nice.
have-
It's really cool. Like if you love playing poker, this is the place to be. It's gonna be a fun thing.
And when you talk about TVs and sports, there will be
There's
plenty
a
of it.
couple TVs in there. Yeah. Couple. Yeah. So you could literally come watch college softball and play poker, two really good things, and do them at the same time.
Maybe come World Series, we should do like a softball dad's day or something.
We just do a softball tournament. Like we do a College World Series poker tournament and wrap it around that.
There you go.
And yeah, I think it's a thing.
Yeah.
Should happen.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
You got to talk to the boss man, Joey, and make that happen. But yeah,
You will. Don't worry.
yeah. Is he the boss or are you the boss? Like you're the boss, right?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be the one because I'm home that's gonna have to go
Okay.
put out all the fires. So
I'm
while he's
saying-
the boss right now, I'm pretty sure I'll be the boss as after
I'm
it
saying that for
opens.
Joey's benefit. I mean, he's smart. He says you're the boss. Even if you're not the boss, he's got to say you're the boss, right?
Yeah. Well,
You're
He
the
has a
boss of
chance-
me. I can probably tell you right now in our dugout, you're the boss of me. You've told me to shut up 2 or 3 times. I know it. So
I do.
yeah.
I cannot be I can handle not being the head coach, but it doesn't mean I'm not gonna boss people around.
No, it's really good. I actually get to not be the bad guy sometimes, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this summer. Well, Kat, I've taken a bunch of your time.
No worries.
When I reached out to you and said, "Hey, we're bringing the podcast back," you were the absolute first person I wanted to do this with, and it's really cool to talk softball with you. We'll have to do this again for sure. You may actually have to make you the host one of these times.
We can do that.
Yeah, for sure. Because people probably get tired of hearing me talk. But want to give a big shout out to our sponsor of this podcast today. Today's sponsor is Mark Pro, and they're a huge recovery partner that we, with the Bombers, just signed an agreement with, and we're excited about taking recovery to the next level with our players this summer. And so click on the link that you see on the screen. I think there's a QR code there. Yeah. That allows you to take that, go find out more about Mark Pro. And if you're interested in purchase one, there's a code on there with the Bombers, so it'll help you get a discount. So we're excited about our partnership with them, and hopefully we have a good summer and get it going. I can't wait for summer. I'm ready.
I'm ready too. We just got to get through high school season first.
I know. I get to the point where I'm tired of watching softball. I'm like ready to play, and college softball just started. So I can't be tired. I'm not tired of watching softball yet, but there's it's like when you practice against your own teammates for so long and you're like, dude, I'm tired of practicing against somebody. I just want to get on the field, play somebody else.
Yeah.
I reached that plateau when watching softball at some point. So, well, thank you again. Tell Joey, thanks for letting me steal an hour of your time. And
No problem.
yeah, Bomber Podcast out. Thank you.
Let's go. Bye.